Welcome, Remington. This is Agency Life with Clodagh Higgins, and we have from Impulse Creative owner and another agency couple talking to us about agency life. Welcome to our show, Remington. How are you today?
Oh, I'm fantastic. It's early here, but it looks like a wonderful afternoon for you.
Yeah, Ireland's giving the illusion. You're in Florida, right?
Yeah, we're in Florida, so it's still dark outside.
Yeah, it's giving the illusion that it's bright here, but it ain't.
Fair enough.
A lot of bounce back. So, welcome to the show. As I said, we're doing a mixture of agency owners and agency couples talking about the real stuff with agency life. So, you and your wife, Rachel, work in the business. And when I asked you the question before about which came first, you said the agency first and Rachel straighten you out later. Tell us
Yeah.
about Impulse and then when Rachel entered into the scene.
Yeah, so there's a couple fun things. So we started out as Remington Graphics in the beginning. There's always this chrysalis effect that starts to happen as the business grows. But when we were pushing that earlier, it was more of I was working as a bartender, out of college.
Wow.
And that cash on a day-to-day is really hard to walk away from. And so finally I stepped out and was like, I'm going to do this. And I started the business part-time for probably about 6 months. And as I did that and committed to it, it started growing pretty quick. And it had to be 6-7 months later, I met Rachel. And Rachel started asking questions about things. And she's like, well, at that time I was working out of my parents' loft. And she's like, and so within a few months, she started whipping me into shape. And, she's my rock in a lot of different ways. But she, fast forward, we're just now 12 years old, the company. And she, and she runs all the operations. And so now she does that from home. We have a 3-year-old at home. And so she works part-time running operations. And then all the rest of the crew is here, tending to the sales, if you will.
In the office doing service and delivery. So
yep.
Operations of the home and operations of the agency.
Yeah, for sure. Like she just sets me straight. I just do what I'm told.
Yeah. Fascinating. You're a clever man, right?
I like to think so.
That's fascinating. So one of the things that we were told, I asked you about previous to this was, and there must be a story about it, when you're giving some secrets to agencies. So 12 years, that's a lot of a roller coaster up and down. And one of the things you mentioned, which I'd love to hear more about, is just advice to agencies was, you were saying don't get complacent. What was that moment that you realized that?
Yeah, so there's been a couple of times where, the carrot that you're chasing is like, I made it kind of feeling. Yeah. And that can seem relieving and exciting, but then at the same time, you get there, you have to further innovate, because if you're running a race and you get right before the finish line, you're like, let me bask in this glory, but you don't actually pass the finish line. Like someone's going to overpass you, and it doesn't matter how big or how small you are. And so, a lot of times I find when I talk to some other agencies, and some of them are smaller, lately, where they're like 1 or 2 people, and they're like, I just want to be like you. And I'm like, well, hold on. Right? Like we're great. I think we're really great at brand, and we do a really great job. And I think that we're doing a really great job delivering services. On the outside, it looks like it's a cakewalk, and that's what it's supposed to look like. Right. But on the other side of it, it's like, well, why do you want that? Like, what is the meaningful reason that you want to be like Impulse Creative? And the perception is that it's easy, but that's the perception, right? And so I look at that, going back to the answer about being complacent, it's like you get to that point, whatever your goal is, and you're like, I made it. The second you bask in that glory for a minute, or you go on that month-long sabbatical vacation because you were like, hey, like I made it, I don't have to worry about it, is the second that you start not paying attention to things that were actually making you get there in the first place.
Got it. Right.
So when I say that, it's like, you can still enjoy it. You can still like pop the champagne when you make a goal, but you've got to always make sure you know where the next direction is.
Yeah. And if we're going to use the race analogy, that the baton is handed to someone. But if the baton
Right.
is you all the time and you go on holiday and you come back and there's the baton's lying on the ground, well,
Right.
you've got a business. You've got a job.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you know, in the trenches example of that is a few years ago, we had a really great couple of years of growth. When I look back, it was super uncomfortable, so I'd never do it again, but it was about 300% year over year.
Whoa.
And so it was growth for the sake of growth. I like to tell people, like, it was, oh yeah, let's just kill it. Let's hire another person. Let's just go. And I look back and, you know, we got to where we wanted to be. Like, I had very specific goals. Like, I wanted to have an office that was modern like Apple. I wanted to hit a certain revenue goal, and I wanted a certain number of people. That was like my badge of honor, to have those three things. And I expected that in 10 years when I built that goal, and it happened in 3. And so when we got to that goal, I was just now freaking out because I'm essentially trying to wade in all the service delivery and make sure everyone's going well.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to tell the team what the next goal was. And so when we talk about like your mission and your vision, like, a lot of times people put it in and it has little to no meaning. And on the other side, the team doesn't really know what values to stand behind. And at that point, I said, here's our vision. This is where I want to be. And then suddenly we're there. And I didn't realize until it was too late that people need to know what the next step is. Like, you get over that hill, like, what's the next hill? It doesn't mean it's not achievable.
Yeah. And those, you know, I think you know this now, those are vanity metrics that you had. Those that
right. Yeah, exactly.
People, and, you know, and then, yeah, you can get that. That's easy to get. But
right.
values, making people stick and having that. And so that's the human nature, and which is great if you're hiring people who are looking for the next goal. And so what happened then? How did that all kind of...
Yes. So culture took a hit, and it's one of those things you don't really know that culture's taking a hit until it smacks you in the face. Yeah. And so what happened is there was, we had a really strong core team in regards to people who had the technical ability, you know, and as I joke on a couple other podcasts, like, we're really good at training people. And so at that point, you know, we'd seen some success. Things were a little rocky as far as like what the future looked like for some of the staff. And it was a perfect opportunity for certain conversations I had with other agency owners who will remain unnamed to essentially go, oh, I would love that platter of really awesome people. And so I had 12 people. In a matter of 3.5 months, I was down to 2.5, not including me and my wife. So it was, you know, you think of that year over year growth, and then suddenly you don't have anyone to implement that. We lost a lot of clients, and I was really, really pissed about that it had to be over a year. I was just really like jaded is the best way to put it. And then really kind of came to terms with it is like, well, what happened if you kept all those clients, for one, right? And then the other one, and this came after, was what happened if you kept all those employees? You know what I mean? And so as hard as it is, and I don't want to sound shallow, but one thing that has been really great to learn is you learn something with every single hire and every single fire. And that's been one of those things that, you know, you look for, and you continue like weeding down what that job description or what those core responsibilities or those guardrails should be. So looking back, I never want to do that again. And my wife and I have agreed that will never happen again. But moving forward, it's one of those things that's always that reminder, if you will.
How did you get out of bed every day when that hit happened? Because
it was tough.
Affected you personally.
Oh yeah.
What did you change in your personal life to get you up and out the door?
So I'm a pretty stubborn person. Okay. And so some of the people who did leave left because of things they were told by outside influences, like where there's smoke, there's fire, and you're not going to last 3 months, or whatever those things were. And on paper, I wasn't sure that we were either. But once we figured out what we needed to do, I know a lot of people in the industry, when it comes down to like personal and family, we just had to it was one of those conversations, like, if none of this works out, what's the worst that can happen? And at that point, a great mentor of mine said to me, you got to run the business with these fundamentals. And it sounds cynical. What's the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? And can you survive the worst? And I haven't forgotten that since that moment. Right. So like, if everything blows up, what's the worst that can happen to you? And the answer was, I could go get a job and likely make more than I was making before everything blew up. Right. So that was, yeah. So exactly. Like, I could just go back to the bar, but the drive and the commitment and like just really understanding what we needed to do in order to make stuff happen, really kind of came together. And what was great is the people that were left, Ryan on my team, he was here, and there was one other. Those two people really showed their, they showed their brawn in the regard of being like, hey, like, we love Impulse. Those guys are a-holes, and let's go ahead and just prove them wrong. Right. And that was the fire for the first 6 months to get out of it. And then it was, okay, guys, let's fix all this.
Amazing.
Let's make things happen.
That's an incredible story. And today, now you're sitting there, you've got this great culture, you've got this great perception. And one of the things you've accredited this to is you've created a culture of learning, which I instill in agencies all the time. And talk to me about what would be the tips you would say to create a culture of learning in your agency. What are the things that you do?
You got to do it yourself first as leadership.
Yeah, got to get those done.
Yeah, which is really easy to point the finger. Jackie on my team always says, before you point, your thumb is pointing at yourself. Like, and I love it. Like, I use it all the time now. But when you're telling people that they've got to innovate and learn, like, you've got to understand. You don't have to know everything that everyone on your team knows, and that's another lesson that I've learned recently. But you've got to understand, like, the concepts and the fundamentals and how all of that comes together, right? You've got to be able to look at the cover of the puzzle box to know how all the puzzle pieces fit, even if you don't fundamentally understand which puzzle goes where. Yeah.
You gotta have
and then we wrote it right into our core values. Like, one of our core values is growth oriented, and that's personally, professionally, that's helping our clients, that's ourselves. And, it's each month we ask, like, we use 15-5. It's a great app. And every week when it comes out, it goes, what did you learn this week? I actually don't care what the answer is, as long as there's an answer.
Yeah. Could be anything.
Right.
Could be
yeah.
Could be anything. Right.
Yeah. One of them was, I learned that I couldn't accomplish all of the tasks that I gave out, this week for myself. Fantastic. Let's not make that mistake again. But some of the more advanced ones were, we learned a whole nother thing that you could do with HubSpot, as an example, that HubSpot doesn't even know you could do. From a HubSpot support, it's like, yeah, we'll put that on the request, and we just accomplished it. Yeah. So those kinds of things, like staying curious, if you can create that culture, all of a sudden now there's innovation there where there isn't if you don't push.
Yeah. And that, like you said, there is, like, I don't believe there's a finish line in what we're doing here, unless your own personal finish line is to sell the business onto somebody else. But then they're going to pick it up, and once the ball is moving until you decide to close it down.
So I call it a boulder, not a ball. So I feel like, so it's like, you get to a point as a solopreneur where you're pushing the boulder up the mountain, and then you get over that first hill, and now you have to run in front of it. Yeah. Like, right? Like, you just got to run in front.
Yeah.
But
great analogy. And speaking of the boulder getting to the size, you mentioned about, which is something I believe in as well, around capping your agency out at a certain point in size, 20 to 25. I've got my
Yep.
own personal on that. Is that because of the way you grew, or is there something else that's around that?
So it goes to some personal goals, and then also for the team. Like a lot of the team is motivated by being able to have the lifestyle they want, right? It also tells the team that this is not going to be this continuous cog in a wheel that is going to just like be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of agency acquisitions, not to harp on anyone doing that, but like it's the new thing to do, it seems, over the past couple of years.
It's very trendy.
Yeah. And I get it, because talent's hard to find, right? But if I can direct and navigate the team, we're very nautical at Impulse, but if I can navigate the team to do things more effectively, and I can innovate the deliveries that we have in order to get clients to pay us more money, we shouldn't need to get higher, because we're not chasing a stick of more revenue. We're chasing a stick of profitability.
Yeah.
And, at the end of that, at the end of 3 to 5 years, I want a waiting list.
Yeah.
Is essentially what it comes down to.
That's what I loved about it, was like, you have a waiting list of clients, but you have this core team, because it is true. Like I've worked in a small company, and then it got very big, and I just didn't like it. I love knowing something about the people I'm working with, be able to have a personal question, remember them, and remember their lives. I just love that connection, and people do generally that sort of small village feeling. Is much more preferential and keep the clients waiting, which is brilliant. And speaking of waiting clients, surely you must have a very long list of people waiting to work with you when it comes to video, because my God, did you guys play early and play hard and then bring the best of the best talent in? But video is a big play for you guys.
Yeah, so video is a huge piece. We actually did a webinar yesterday with 23.
Nice.
And it's just one of those things that kind of tie into into now our mission statement. Like our mission statement is something that is changed, and is also one of those things that I think companies get scared to change.
Yeah, they do.
Or they don't put any emphasis. It's either they put no emphasis on it, or they're like, we can't change. That's our mission. Like your mission actually does change depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Right. So over the 12 years, I think ours has changed 4 times. And it's essentially because I feel that we get so close to it that it's hard to differentiate what the next step is versus where we are. So before it was leveraging inbound and like driving things into that. And now we're finding that it gets more into leveraging the right technologies and strategies, right? Because we're doing conversational marketing now like crazy. We're doing video marketing, to your point, like crazy. There's a lot of these different areas that we're going. And if our mission says that we're going to leverage inbound, which we're not leaving inbound marketing. It's not the only piece of the puzzle.
It's not the only piece. And I think if everyone looks at themselves, like I know the way I've been operating as my own human person, not an agency owner, not an agency person, I have gone more to video. If I can find a 2-minute video instead of reading some instructions about something, I'm over. I'm always looking. So if we're personally doing that, of course our clients want that. Of course everyone else wants that.
Yeah.
But you're a few streets ahead of this, right? So there's agency owners out there. Imagine you're just starting today, and or you've been maybe doing the inbound thing and doing it traditional, and you don't know where to start with video. What would be the first 3 things you'd say to an agency to get it right? You've made some mistakes, so you know.
Yeah. So you have a camera on your computer.
Got it.
Like, do it right now.
Do it.
Like that, that's the big thing. And then from an organization point of view, if the CEO is afraid to get on camera because they're not happy with what they look like, or they are uncomfortable on camera, everyone in the entire organization is going to feel the same way.
Right. It reverberates through.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Amazing. And so was it, I think it's 2 years now. Yeah. Beginning of 2016, I shut off all the conference phones in the entire company. Like we don't have any phones on our desks.
No need.
And you're only allowed to talk to a client if you have video on.
Right.
And so it did a couple interesting things. One, it was, well, you just took away my vice for being comfortable in video. And two, the conversation was, what if the client doesn't have video on? Doesn't matter. Like you can guilt them. You can guilt them into it, but what are we doing right now? We're having a conversation, and you know, whether they're across the world, like in Ireland, or whether they are across town, you're going to have a conversation on video, and they're going to realize that you actually care and you're paying attention to them. And that has served us. I think if there's one in the past 3 years, there's one thing that we did was putting the humans back into the communication, like, and the video side of it, because no one does that. And so that's the big thing. So then you take that to the marketing point, to your point, you know, the video, being able to put these micro videos out with thoughts. You know, you have that internal strife where you're like, does what I say matter? Or is there other content out there like that is smarter than me? And everyone has their own unique perspective. So they just got to get out of their own way and put it out there. And trust me, I have some really bad videos that are on the internet right now that like you can tell that I'm sitting there reading my phone and like taking a breath to look up at the screen. And looking back at that, like every part of me wants to redo those videos, but at the same time, it's a huge lesson because we run into clients every single day. We're like, we're just not as good as you. And I was like, well, last year we did 420 videos. That's like, you'll be just like me or better after that.
That's how you get good at it. So that's fantastic. So I think for an agency today, like one of the tools I found incredible was Vidyard, right? You know, I got sent a Vidyard video instead of an email by an agency, and I loved it. I went, yes, this is brilliant. So if an agency said, first of all, they went, instead of sending emails to each other, let's do videos to each other. Let's get comfortable and make mistakes in front of each other, get feedback, and the CEO's got to do that as well. That's a great start. Using the video with your clients, even if they don't, and you're right, they might not be comfortable, but I tell you what happens, you know, call 3,
like you.
Call 4, call 5, next minute they've got the confidence. They'll put their, you know, they'll go, do you know what, if they can do it, I'll do it. And you can get them onto that. That's a really good one there to get comfortable with the video. I love that idea. That's fantastic.
With some of our larger clients, we'll even send them a present, and it's usually an LG C920 camera, and with no words. Like, here's your gift from Impulse Creative, and it guilts them into being on camera. It's fantastic.
Oh, wow, that's a great. Okay, there's another good strategy. Guilt them into it, and say you don't have to put it. You have to be. You know. It intrinsically says that for you.
Yep. The other, you mentioned Vidyard. I absolutely love Soapbox by Wistia for the same reason. One of the reasons I prefer Soapbox is the human side. You're with Vidyard, you're either human, or in a screen share, you're a bubble.
Yeah.
Right. With Soapbox, you can be 1/3 of the screen the entire time.
Oh, okay.
So that's typically what we do. And we've gone as far as no reports are allowed to be sent to clients without a video explaining them. So like, you can't send analytics for the past month.
Don't.
Without having a video where you're on the third saying, so I'm not exactly excited about your traffic increase, but it is over the previous month. But leads are up, you know, like showing your opinions on things rather than just an email on the stats.
Oh, never. Yeah, that's something where I'm saying, I'm always telling agencies, switch off the automated reports.
Yeah.
Either get on a phone call to deliver them and record the phone call, or this is even better as well, if time permitting, or you need to send it to multiple. Excellent. You are only the agencies who are doing insights and doing recommendations and giving their expertise are the only ones who are going to be around in the next couple of years.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So much AI is coming up from the bottom.
Yeah. It's no longer. So I actually tasked the team this year. we have to look at every single one of our service deliveries and we have to figure out how to make it leaner. And they're like, what do you mean leaner? I was like, cheaper. Yeah. Like we have to figure out, everyone else is trying to go up market, larger everything. And I said, we need to figure out ways to bring it down market and make things more affordable, but yet still maintain or increase profits.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes towards our mission now is, we have the phrase meaningful growth. Everyone else is a growth agency nowadays, yeah. But because someone got on stage and said that's what we needed to do. People don't realize that you're a laggard if you follow advice like that. You're not innovating.
Absolutely. Yeah. So early days, have you found any tools then that you kind of, obviously early in the piece, but any, you know what, that's a good tool to save profitability, time, hours, that kind of thing?
Yep. So for agencies, so I'm a data nerd like crazy. So I understand people's capacities by hour because we track everything by point. Like I could tell you how much space everyone in my org has in regards to the available time. I know their efficiencies, they know their efficiencies, and we know how much it costs to run the agency down to the hour. There's actually a number on the wall. So everyone knows that if they're going to go play darts, that it's essentially costing the company about $400 an hour to go play darts for an hour. So
that up there.
Yeah, like, and because you tell employees how much your expenses are for a month. That's usually more than they make in a year. They can't articulate how that works. And so you bring it down to a bite-sized piece where they're like, would you waste $400 an hour? Suddenly mindsets change, right? Like, so, but going to your point about the tools, so Databox I love. We also use a tool called Clipfolio, which allows for us to get a little bit more nerdy about some data. Okay. So imagine, Google spreadsheets on steroids in regards to the kind of calculations and visualizations you can do. And then what we're doing is we're using Harvest for time tracking. Yeah. And they have a budgets feature that most people don't really know about. So you can go in for like an inbound retainer account. Let's say that it should take 12 hours total a month. Yeah. You can say Sue gets 4 hours of this, Audrey gets 4 hours of this, and then the content writers as a group get this many hours. And you can actually see who and what team is over or under efficiencies. And so I think Harvest is probably one of the biggest tools for understanding service delivery. And then of course you got all the other stuff that can save you time.
I love that. Budgets inside and Harvest, awesome. And the Clipfolio?
Clipfolio, yep, with a K. Yep.
With a K, brilliant. That sounds really good. You've mentioned a few things there, which is kind of wrapping into a big issue that I have with agencies. It's almost like this fear when I'm coaching them. They go, I'm investing so much in these people. I'm giving them culture. I'm giving them business acumen. I'm giving them learning. What if somebody steals them?
Yep.
What if they're poached?
Yep.
You have massive experience in this. Talk to me about that fear and how, when it does happen, like, first of all, when it does happen, what do you do?
Sure. So that thought is poison.
Yeah.
So after the poaching incident, I obviously had to hire up. So we started hiring. And I believe we hired 6 people in that first year right after. None of those people work for me. Because I was hiring with that same feeling because I was spited and I was like, I just need someone to plug into a spot and I need them to do their job and I need them to kind of be there. And it wasn't probably about like 1.5 to 2 cycles of that 6 people that, and luckily or unluckily, it happened very quickly. I mean, it all happened within the course of a year that I went through 2 full cycles of additional people. But you just can't. I mean, so I heard something. I heard someone else say it, that it's like they're graduating, but not in a HubSpot graduating point of view. Yeah. Like they're going through. They are helping you across their journey, and they're literally graduating into something else. Yeah. And in our 15.5 internally, we have a question that's an internal review question that says, if this person was to leave today, how would you feel? And I write that down every single week. And so what it allows for us to do is understand, like, so does this person deserve a raise? If you are saying, if they were to leave tomorrow, I'd be screwed. Well, then if you say that 3-4 weeks in a row, why don't you do something about it?
Got it. Right.
Right. So, but the other side is understanding that you're going to have people to leave. And if you go into it knowing that they are, but you also hire for someone as if they were never to,
yes,
then it's a lot easier. Like, it's almost like marriage, right? Are you going to be with this person for the rest of your life? Yes, absolutely. Well, then you've got to do everything you possibly can to make that marriage work. If you don't, it's not going to, and it's kind of the same thing with employment. So knock on wood. Every podcast that I say we're doing okay, something changes, but knock on wood, retention is we didn't lose only lost one person last year, and that was by choice. Right. And so previous to that, we hadn't gone a year without 30% of our staff leaving. Yeah. So buckling down.
If you think about it as well, like when you were hiring all those people, you had your lovely vanity metrics that you were going for.
Well, it was after that. It was like when everything just crashed, I was like, I was just hiring for the spot.
Just get them in.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Whereas, like you said, if the agency owner can think about, this is the game, these are my values, and I love that. Go all in. Like, give them everything. Give them the best start. Don't be kind of like, I won't train them completely properly. I won't give them everything because they might leave. That's some different way to look at it. I really like that. So
I've got another lesson that I was just taught by one of my staff members too. So we're talking about performance of another individual, and we have a very rigorous 60-day training program. Like, you go through our training program, you get 5 to 10 certifications from HubSpot and other areas within that 60 days. And at day 61, you are to be able to walk in and handle a client meeting, regardless of your previous agency experience.
Got it.
And it's a gauntlet. It's like boot camp. And so I was like, this is awesome. Like, that was the way that we train people up. And it's like all the core values and the ways that we want people to be. And Ryan on my team goes, what's the plan after 60 days? Right. And that's something that last year I didn't really have much time to focus on. But it's amazing when you start having conversations with employees that suddenly they start having conversations with you, as long as you have that open culture, that suddenly you're like, that's a great point. Never even thought about that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Let them loose into the agency and run free.
Yeah. Like, go, you know what you should do. So this year we've pivoted to, I dumped all of the job descriptions that we had previously, right, which scared some people, but the only thing they know is going to happen is change at Impulse. And everything is guardrails and goalposts. That's the theme of all of our job descriptions. And it says, so we have core values for every single job description, and we have a mission statement for every single job description. And so everyone who is on our retainer or our inbound team, if you will, for a lot of agencies, has their own core values that they have to go after that tie into the company ones. So that's been huge for us.
That's incredible. Like, they're treating them like their own business unit inside the larger one. That's fantastic. Some fantastic advice there. You have some personal ways of I find really interesting of how you personally manage your time. So I know this is super early for you in the morning, but one of the things that you talked about your success is having your time, then the company time, and then family time. To explain a bit more about your personal rituals, if you like.
Yeah. So everyone thinks I'm crazy because I wake up at 4 a.m. And you know, I also, for the record, I also go to sleep at 9:30. So like,
it's like, I was in bed at 8:30 last night. Like, does it matter? Nothing.
Yeah, like
nothing fun happens after 9 o'clock anymore. Not for us.
No. Like, my wife and I actually laugh at each other. We're like, another show, or do you want to go to bed? And we look at each other, we're like, bed. And we're like, we're lame. And I'm like, no, we're not. We're free.
4 a.m.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so another, advisor that I've had over the years was saying, you got to make sure that you always have maker and manager time. Right. So I think I'm getting to the point where in service delivery, I always thought of the maker time was service delivery and the manager time was people. We don't have managers at Impulse Creative. It's a very flat organizational structure.
Nice.
Personal preference. And one of the reasons why I don't want to go above 2025.
Yeah.
But one of the big things is as a owner or as someone who is managing people, if I have to manage people, I don't have the right people. But if I'm managing and being available for my staff, I have 14 right now. That means I would have a 10-hour day if I only spend 45 minutes with each of them daily. Like, so we give them that perspective, but at the same time, that means that I don't have time to do the things that need to make the agency go if I'm helping them do their jobs the right way.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I did is I kind of modeled it out. And of course I have a 3-year-old, and my wife is my rock. So that's very important to me. But during the week, I will always make it home by dinner. And then from then on, and some days it's not always perfect, but it's the plan. But I will, I'll be home for dinner. And then when my son goes down, we usually watch maybe a show. Usually we fall asleep.
2/3 of a show.
Yeah, it's like we put my son down and then, all right, I'm out. But in the morning, it's 4 a.m. Get ready. I jump on the Peloton if I am able to, which is a spin bike, and then jump into my time. And my time is from essentially 5 o'clock until 8:30. And so from 5 till 8:30, office opens at 8:30. Some days I'll go to Starbucks. This morning we have a podcast, and before that I was working on some things, but it allows for me to innovate and focus the vectors of the agency and where I think things need to go. Yeah. And then when everyone comes in, I don't have to worry about all the things I need to get done. I'm pretty sure that I get 8.5 hours worth of work done in the 4-hour block in the morning when no phones are ringing.
Absolutely.
Noise canceling headphones. It's my favorite time of the day because I can I just write out a list on paper, knock all the stuff out, and then by the time everyone gets here, I'm awake because I'm ready for lunch, but everyone else is ready to go, and I'm not in their way.
Energy of you coming into the office, seeing an agency owner who is happy, who is rested, who has achieved what they're doing, as opposed to what we sometimes see is them stressed, hassled, and going, please don't talk to me, I've got stuff to do.
Yeah, I have days like that. Of
course, it's not every day, but most agency are the other way. I love that idea. You have to be available. Or maybe an agency owner could start thinking about, I'm going to make 1 hour of the day available and I'm going to increase it to 2. And somehow at that time.
So that's how I started out with the availability time is, so the team always tries to look for time, and with the days of calendars that allow for you to book time at any slot that you choose.
Well, anyone can book it with our links.
Yeah, exactly. So I have no client meetings on Mondays. That's one thing personally. Like the agency can, it's just me because I have to make sure that I can move things out of the way for people. And then I have 2 1-hour blocks that are completely set every day of the week, other than Monday, because Monday's not available for anyone to book anything, that are help me time. And it's not help Remington. It's like people can go in and edit that event. And the only requirement is if they need help, they have to put what they need help with in the actual help me time. And so what it does is it allows for me to have perspective about what they need. Some cases I can solve that problem before I even have the meeting. But it allows for people to know that even if I have headphones on and I'm super stressed out, like I'll hit that doorknob, we'll sit down, we'll have a conversation, we'll solve a problem. So that's been huge.
Help me time. Fantastic result.
Yep. And then the other one is I learned this 2 years ago, was I have weekly walks with everyone on the team,
Oh,
virtual or not. So we the only requirement is we're not supposed to talk about work.
I was going
so it's a 15-20 minute walk, and like my virtual team, I'll be on Zoom walking around the plaza. I think everyone thinks that I'm like I'm so full of myself taking selfies all day long.
I just love myself.
I'm like walking around like this, like.
Oh.
But yeah, so those two things have really helped with, I think, culture, and also, if you don't ask as a CEO what's happening outside the walls, how can you expect for people to perform inside?
Yeah, because it's not two different lines anymore. We've come through that. I used to have a work quota and a real quota, and I used to separate them. And now the days are gone, and people like that. That's why they want to come and work with you. So you figured out a lot of things at the agency. And also one of the things I wanted to ask you about, so obviously it's an ongoing thing, but being a husband and wife team and working together, what are some of the tips that you do? You've got some interesting advice there around how do you separate it, and how do you have a successful marriage and a successful agency?
Yeah, so it's about a 20-minute drive home from the office. And I usually call my wife before I hit the first speed bump in the parking lot.
Got it.
And because she's home now. But when we rode to work together years ago, we would talk about work, because that's usually the only isolated time that we could talk to each other about things, because open office environment. Yeah. And we found that we just needed to stop talking at a certain point in the journey home so that we could be home when we got home. And so, because otherwise the conversation will stay all the way through until you pass out, right?
Until well into the night. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's always outliers. Like, nothing is absolute in this regard. But now what we do, like, if I abruptly hang up on my wife, like while driving, she'd be like, what the heck, right? But but in general, like, she knows when I get to the top, it doesn't matter how much we're talking about with work or whatever, I need a good 10 minutes to just wind down before I come in the door. The other thing is, some days I'll pull up into the driveway and I won't get out of the truck.
I was going to say, just sit there and then be you before you go into the house.
Yeah. And I realized that because my 3-year-old, because they're sponges, my 3-year-old would not run up and hug me when I was super stressed out when I walked in the front door. But if I took a second and like centered myself, then he'd be like running up to me like crazy. And so I realized I was bringing things home, even if I didn't talk about them. So every once in a while I'll sit in the driveway for 10 minutes, and it used to freak my wife out, but now it's just, no, like, I just needed that time. Like, I need to chill for a minute. But the other biggest part, if you're thinking about getting into the agency, or if you don't have this yet and you're working with someone, is it goes with any employee. Like, what's their role? Like, what do they do? They can't just be like the husband and wife team with employees, because the team needs to know who to go to, and for certain things. And also, you need to know what's yours or mine, because it's a transaction that happens at work, and it's also a transaction that happens at home.
Right. If you've like a husband and wife team in an agency, and you both do the same job, right?
Right.
Someone's going to try and ask your wife, and then they get the answer, and then they try with you, and then maybe if you haven't had time to communicate, you might say yes, they've said no, argument. Like, it's going to be actually. But if there's clear roles going, in your case, Rachel is operation. You are the owner, so ask you for these things. Ask Rachel for those.
Exactly.
That's
So Rachel handles all the billing, all the HR. Like, people know that if they ask me when our next vacation days are, like, either search in Tetra, or like, I don't know my name right now, like, right? But like, look it up in Tetra or hit up Rachel. Yeah. If it's client service or service delivery or like a technical question, they know that it's for me. And that's helped that's helped Rachel and I, but it's also, it's also helped the team quite a bit. And you never have that question about what is the other people doing. And this, I think, is just partners in general. I don't know how many companies I talk to, and I always joke like 50% of all partnerships fail. And it's usually the person's perception of who failed, right?
Right.
But it's all of the partners that go into things say, oh, we're going to do this together, but no one puts a defined role or reasoning or mission for those individuals. That's going to lead to complacency of at least one person, but also really kind of limit you and allow for your brain and the story you're telling yourself to start going that, oh, this person doesn't do anything. All I'm doing is busting my butt.
Everything. Yeah.
Right.
And the hasn't been fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just a business card title, for the record, but it's actually like, what are they doing? Yeah. And I know a couple very successful agencies that also fired their significant other from the company. And so like going into that, being like, this is the role and the responsibility, like, what are we going to do? That's just one of those things that you should be like, this very moment, we're both agreeing, if we don't do the job, we're going to get replaced. Like this moment, not later when we hate each other and we say you're fired. Because if you're fired from work and you haven't talked about things later, that's not going to be good at home either.
No, that's never going to work out.
Right.
Exactly right. So can you imagine today, Remington, like you're 12 years in this game. You're with your partner Rachel a long time. Today, right now, there are agency couples out there just starting out. They're in the first few months.
Yeah.
Looking back, what would be some of the key advice that you would give them today, 2019, they're going into this role together? Defined roles, love that. Decide when you're not performing in your role, that's a great one.
Yep.
What else you give as your secret sauce? Yeah,
so treat yourself, like have board meetings. Like it's not just something you have to do like for your corporate minutes. Like you actually have to have conversations about where the company's going. Know and acknowledge the fact that you're not going to agree on everything.
Yeah.
Like you have to understand each other's point of view. And I think one of the biggest things is take ego out of it. That any mistake that I've made is because I haven't slept on it before. Right. And yeah, like, and I'm an impulsive guy. Like it's actually in our name, like impulse. Right. But you have to be like rooted in something. And so if you have a mission, you have a vision, and you understand what your core values are, and you're just getting started, that's a huge step. And then the biggest thing I'd say is show people before you tell them.
Show before you tell.
Yep.
Phenomenal. Yeah, you've got to do the work yourself, like the learning yourself. You've got to do the marketing.
Yeah.
You've got to do the videos yourself. You cannot tell your staff to do these things without doing it yourself. And getting over your own hurdles. You know, you're not comfortable in video, like you said. Great one. Just keep doing it until you are. Practice makes it perfect. Well, this has been a fantastic chat with you. I think we could be here all day, you and I. For sure. But we know how these things go. Thank you so much. What is the favorite way for people to get in touch with you, and what would you love them to call? If the phone rang tomorrow, oh, hang on, you don't have one. If somebody sent you a video.
We still have a phone. But yeah. But no, so reaching out to me personally, if you want to hit me up on Twitter, that's the easiest, like direct thing, is at Remington Begg, REMINGTON BEGG. You can also, if you want to know who we are, what we do, why we do it, you can go to impulsecreative.com. And if you have questions, if you are an early agency couple in your agency journey, I'm happy just to have a chat too. I've got a lot of notches in my belt of things not to do that you don't usually see all day long. But I'm an open book.
You'll be at some of the usual agency established events that are around the traps. Are you going to anything cool in the near future by any chance?
Yeah, so one of my things this year, I have to get out of my cave. But
left to do this year. You haven't got your hands stuck in the service delivery.
Yeah, exactly. I got stuff to do. But so Partner Day's coming up. I hope to be speaking at Inbound this year. And I likely will be talking at the Agency Partner Day I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty passionate about conversational marketing. So anywhere where that can become a conversation, I'll probably be there too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Remington.
No problem.
Really appreciate it.